thought I would go over some different methods on how to make brushes and a couple cheats to make brushes. Those are usually the hardest to get an understand of how you make them. And so I thought I would just show you how I do it to give you a little bit of a sense of just a different way of how to do it. I mean, I think everybody has their different way of making brushes, and so I'll show you mine. So first things first, I usually find a PNG, some sort of artboard of the shape that I am wanting. And so I found just this zipper illustration, and usually when I look up PNGs for artwork that I want to do, I look up blank illustration. And when you have an illustration, usually that's a lot better than a photo because it will give you the line work. So here we have, we're going to embed that real quick so those annoying lines go away. Okay, so here we have a zipper, and all we're wanting to do is we're wanting to just to get the shape of one tooth. So this is probably not the greatest PNG for this because it's very blurry, but it will give us the idea. Oh, and we have our fill going on. I love that. Okay. We're gonna turn off fill. Up the stroke. Okay. So now that we have basic shape. So here's another, if you want to get these little handles and you're like, oh shoot, forgot to do that, like I just did with this one. Here's another quick tip. You have this little circle. If you just pull that, it will also just round that out for you. It's kind of nice. So down here, I don't like that sharp corner either. And so we are also going to round out that guy. Make it a little more smooth. And I just want to round these corners a little bit too, just to give it more of that zipper effect. And once you have a shape that is looking half decent, so now what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this. So if you don't know the shortcuts already, Command C is copy, Command V is paste. And so once you have your duplicate, you're going to realize, oh shoot, it is on the wrong side. So either right click or double click, depends on your computer a little bit. We're going to go to, so first off, this is kind of just your quick shortcuts. This is super helpful. Once you have this memorized, it'll make your life so much easier. So we're going to go to transform. And so this, then you can go to reflect. Going to reflect that. So it's going to ask you want it horizontal or vertical. We're going to want vertical. And if it's not flipping, it's not looking quite right, make sure you got preview on. It will show you what direction yours is in. We're going to hit OK. Okay, so for these, sometimes you connect the top, but I did the tops too far, so we're going to have to space these guys out. And this little pink line that you see, this is your guide. This helps you kind of keep everything snapped into place. So once we have it kind of where we want it, then we're going to go to these, the top two. We're going to, so, okay, another trick. I realized you can't see me, so I got to explain these. Okay, going to go to your direct selection tool, click the first anchor point, and then hold down shift, click the second anchor point, and then do Command J. This is going to join these two together. And so now we have our little tooth there. And so now we're going to go do the same thing on the bottom. So direct selection tool, anchor point 1, hold down shift, click anchor point 2. You can let go of shift and then do Command J. That is going to join those together. Okay, now we no longer need our photo because we got our little toothy guy here. Maybe want to make him a little skinnier. Okay, and now we should be able to fill this in as well. If you can't fill it in, that's probably something to do with your anchor point tools or your join. You probably didn't join it correctly. Or if you have lines going every which way, it's probably because you didn't join it correctly. So, now that we have our tooth, what we're going to do is we're going to copy, paste. We're going to copy and paste that. So, to rotate it, what we can do is we can, if you go to the corner and you see this little arrow that's like a corner arrow, we can just do that and try to get it try to get it to go perfectly. Sometimes that's hard though. If you hold down shift, it will snap to the closest degree. So if it's about right here, you're thinking, oh, I want 280-ish, or 270, sorry. Then it's going to snap to 270. It's going to snap to whatever those 90-degree points are. And so, anyways, shift. Shift is your best friend. So we're going to hold down shift. Now we know it's perfect. Okay. Another way you can do that, we're going to copy this guy too. If we right click it, then we can go to transform again and we can do reflect. So this time we can do it horizontal and it will flip it on the horizontal axis. And we can do that so we can have two. In how I do it, however, I will be honest, we will only need one of these guys. So how do we get it to go from this to a brush? Well, you can say, hey, this looks good. Let's try to do that into a brush. So we can go add a brush. But the issue is you're going to have these weird gaps. So how brushes work is it's a box. You have this box that it's going to duplicate, essentially. And when it's on the corner, it's going to duplicate the box like this on the corner. And so with that in mind, we're going to make a box. We're going to try to replicate this box. That's another thing. Shift, if you're making a box and you hold down shift, it will pop it to be perfect on both sides or make a square. We're going to get our square. We're going to turn off fill. We're also going to make the stroke a different color so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. So what we're going to do, we need our box, right? So, okay, again, that line popped up. That means it's in center with this. My box is center with this tooth. And this is going to be our main tooth, so we want that center. Okay, so we have it in the center. So usually when you get to this step, Dave has you do a clipping mask, which if you highlight all of them, you can do make clipping mask, and then you can go add a brush that way. Do pattern brush. The issue is sometimes pattern brushes don't work. So we're going to see if this one works. So we're going to name it Zipper Basic. Let's see. Okay. So you can also have this flip along axes like that. But you can already see there is these huge gaps in my zipper teeth. It is not looking correct. So how do we get rid of these gaps? Well, so this is the issue when you do a clipping mask, is you have these annoying, it continues having all of these dots right here that you have to get rid of. So what you can do, you can go through and delete every single one of those dots, but I'm going to show you a different way. So we're going to undo the clipping mask. So you can either do Command Z, or if you highlight, if you've made a clipping mask, you can go to Object, Clipping Mask, Release, and it will also undo it that way. We're going to make sure. Okay, so the way I do it, actually, especially, this works really well with zipper pulls, or if you're having problems with your clipping mask, try this method. Okay, so we're going to do a line right down the middle of one of these zipper teeth. So that pink line tells us this is the middle. So you have one dot, start it from the top, and then go down to the middle. It will usually snap to directly in half. And we're going to want to make that stroke pretty small. Okay, now we're going to zoom in all the way. Going to go to our cut tool. And where these two intersect, that is where you're going to want to cut it. So where these intersect, cut it right there. The line just helps you know where you need to cut it, so it's directly in half. Oh, it looks like it might have intersected both my lines. So let's delete. We can delete those lines. Oh, it looks like it cut my line instead of my shape. So we're going to try that again. Cut. Oh, looks like it cut my line again. And sometimes it's just kind of tricky. This is being kind of stubborn, not gonna lie. We're going to send that to the back. So hopefully we can get this up top. Okay, let's see if that works. Because usually whatever is on top, that's what it's trying to cut. Okay, I believe that cut it this time. Let's go down here. And we'll try it this way. Okay, now we have our 2 halves. So we can delete this line. Now when we pull these apart, it's going to give us 2 equal halves of the zipper. So 1 half we're going to place wherever you want. So maybe we'll do it there because it will intersect. And this tooth is kind of just giving us a little guide. So it's going to snap into place intersecting right there, and it's going to tell us, hey, this is where the other one is on the other side. So another way, if you're like not sure, you know, your eyes can be deceiving a little bit. If you're like, this doesn't look like it's quite even. I can already see that it looks like this one is higher. So it looks like that snapped into place. Just to double check, what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to the ruler, grab that, bring it down to the top of one of these. Okay, so now with our guideline, we can see, okay, actually those are even. They both have this tiny, tiny little gap on both sides. Okay, and you can, once you have that, you can delete your guideline. If your guideline is being stubborn and you're like, I can't delete this, why can't I delete this? Okay, over here, sometimes this automatically turns on. This is your lock. And once your lock is on, you can't delete, you can't move, you can't do anything with your guidelines, and it becomes really annoying. This is your hide. This is to see your guidelines. This is your smart guides or your snaps. So you're going to want to make sure your guidelines are unlocked, and then you can delete them. Okay, now that we know that we have this shape, we actually don't need the box anymore, I'll be honest. So now that we have our repeated shape that we need, we're going to go to this. So we have this brushes and symbols tab open. Usually when you're sometimes this usually just pops up. If it does not pop up for you, if it just looks like this, and you're like, where does this go? Then you're going to go to this. It looks like it says brushes. So you can click on this, honestly, any of these. So that's your swatches, brushes, symbols. And it will open up this little menu. So Dave already went over swatches and symbols with you guys. We're going to go to the brushes tab. And we're going to do this little plus button, new brush. But you're going to want to make sure everything is highlighted. Right now I only have this highlighted. So when I do new brush, it's just going to duplicate that. So we're going to want to make sure that whole box is highlighted, and we're going to do add. So a little bit about the brush types. Your calligraphy brush is similar to a calligraphy pen, where if you go down, when you go up, it's thin, and when you go down, it's thicker. Your scatter brush, it essentially duplicates your artwork randomly. So that one's really fun if you're wanting to do like splatter paint or snowflakes or any other sort. The art brush I haven't played with a ton. As far as I know, it's similar to a symbol where it's kind of like a stamp almost. Bristle brush is more for textures, and our pattern brush is what we are going to be using. This is for a lot of your textiles. So we're going to do pattern brush, hit OK. Okay, and we can see there might be a little bit of white space in between these, but we will test it. And that's the hard part about brushes, is you don't know if they're gonna work perfectly until you essentially make it and test it, and sometimes it's a little annoying. So you can scale this, and you can have it kind of, I don't really think it will do much for us currently, but so we're just gonna have it at fixed spacing. This one's kind of fun. You can add spacing to yours if you want that. Usually we try to get rid of spacing, but if you want spacing, you can add spacing. We can flip it, since these are, the same. It doesn't really look all that different, but you can try if you want. Okay, and then colorization. You honestly shouldn't need to mess with any of these. One things you might want to mess with are these. So this is going to show what it looks like on the corner. So if we have none, see, look, it's going to show us, it's going to skip those corners. Auto center, sometimes it looks a little funky. Or we can do overlap, which is, or you can do slice. Sometimes, it depends on your preferences. Pompadour. Let's do that. Whoa, that's insane. Just want to play with that. Again, if you want to be more specific with inside corners, you can mess with these as well. Usually you only have to edit these two, the first two. So we're going to do none for that. And then we're going to do OK. So once you hit OK, it's going to show up in your brushes right here. So a lot of mistakes students make is they go, oh, I want to test it, and they click on this. The issue is we still had your brush selected, so now it's going to outline all of this in your brush. So undo that. Go to your pen tool and let's draw a straight line. Let's test this to see if it looks good. So once you have your line selected, then you can do your brush and see how it looks. And it looks like it got it evenly, got it pretty well on, which is awesome. I'm going to show you what it looks like if it doesn't come out perfect the first try, because 9 out of 10 times it does not come out perfect the first try. So what happens if this is just like slightly off and you're looking at it and you say, hey, that's even, let's make a brush out of that. So we're going to highlight that, new brush, new pattern brush, and you're saying, oh, that looks pretty close, let's try it. Okay, so we're going to make sure we click out of that. We're going to draw our line. Oh, that was not a great line. Okay. But we have this gap, and you say, why in the world is there a gap right there? It looked fine in my original drawing. Sometimes you just have to go, and usually if you have a box like this, it will show you, oh shoot, that point is a little too short. So if you start to pull out that point, it's going to auto snap to be perfectly straight. So then try it again, see if it works, see if you get it the second time. Usually that with brushes, it's just a lot of trial and error to see if it works. But okay, so now that we have done our pattern brushes, another trick I wanted to show you guys is if you actually find certain brushes online, you can make them into brushes. So this is just another JPEG I found online, and I said, hey, these are some cool brushes, but how do we get these images to turn into brushes? I'll show you. So first things first, we're going to do to object, image trace, and we're going to do make and expand. Okay, that is going to read all of these little lines and make them into lines. So we're going to also do ungroup, because it automatically ungroups them all together. We don't want that. Okay, we're going to do delete. Just to show you what these look like, we're going to drag them over here. Okay, so where the background is gone, it looks like it did not repeat that background. So one thing you can do to repeat that background is we can copy it, paste it, put it over here, and cut it right at this line. But before I do that, I just want to test it with my brush to see what it looks like. So we're going to highlight it. We're going to highlight just the one. We're going to do new brush, pattern brush, just to see what it looks like. Let's see what we get. Okay, so now we got this new brush. Oh, and we got to get out of that first. Okay, let's see what it gives us. So we can see off the bat it's a little wonky, right? It's a little wonky at these points. It has some gaps. There's no color here. Not perfect, but it is pretty close. And when you zoom out, can't really tell. But if you're like, oh, that's so close, I want to fix it, I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so first things, if you want the color, what we can do is we can copy this and we're gonna drag a line to about right here. Okay, this is gonna be our cut line. to make these all even. Usually it rounds these lines out. We don't want these rounded. We want them to be flat so that they match up. Okay. So let's go to, if you do C, that's your cut tool. We're just going to cut right there, cut right here. Go to V. Sometimes it does not like to be cut. Sometimes you can even just adjust the points, which might be what we do. We're just going to adjust these points to make them what we want, because sometimes it does not want to be cut. Okay. Now with this one, and drag that to the corner. This one, it looks like we will probably have to end up cutting. So C, cut it right there. It's gonna get mad at me for cutting on this anchor point. So what we're gonna do is do it down the anchor point just a little bit. Okay. Okay. So I don't know if you saw what I did there. I had to release it so it would cut. That was my issue down here. Sometimes Image Trace does funky things. Okay. We're going to cut it right down here, and we're going to cut it right there. Okay, so your number one tip is if it cut correctly or not, is it's just going to highlight the part that you don't want. If it still highlights the entire shape, means it did not cut fully through. So then we can just delete that part. So you can see my line is a little messed up right here. And so what that means is that when I went to go do it, it would create gapping, which we don't want. Okay, let's see. So I managed to cut just the little end right there. Okay, and because I cut it, it did get rid of this circle we had here before, but that's okay because we're just going to add back over the white. So you're going to make it be similar. And then we're just going to cut it. Sometimes it gets a little difficult when you hit those anchor points. Okay. Okay, so we got one end done. We have one more end to go. And so we'll just do the same thing of copying and pasting. We're going to try to fix this guy up a little bit. But this is a lot sometimes, depending on what... Oh, got to add our grid line to know where we want it to go to. Oh, do you see how it highlighted the whole thing? It means it did not properly cut. So we're gonna see. Looks like it cut that time. Okay. Okay. That time it worked. So we're just gonna have these meet up. Okay. And again, we have a little bit of gapping here, so we're just going to go back to our cut tool. Well, it looks like we did not cut that all the way through. We're going to cut it sometimes when you cut stuff, it does get a little funky. So sometimes you just have to add back in those lines. And we'll just go like that because, and then, oh, looks like our line got a little more messed up than anticipated. And just hit undo a couple of times, see what went wrong. Not wanting to cut right there. So instead of cutting, we're simply going to adjust these points. See if we can get that to work better if cutting is being a pain. And it's messing, doing more harm than it is good. Okay, fix that right up. Now we just got this little guy, which we're just going to copy this, paste it over here. See if that works. And then edit those final ink points. Okay, now let's see, now that we fixed that up a little bit, let's see if we could get a pretty, okay, I think it's getting mad at me for my guidelines. Here, we're just going to turn guidelines off. Pattern brush, okay, there we go. Looks like we got a pretty good pattern going, so we're going to hit OK. It's kind of hard to see on those, so this is why it is always great to test it after you have made it. And you can still see we have just a little bit of line gapping right there. And so then go adjust it a little bit more, take it back, retry. But depending on your artwork and depending on how little it is, that might not be something that you necessarily notice.